It's a week before Christmas in a small town in the southern United States. The streets are decorated with colorful lights. Store windows display snowmen and Christmas trees, but the festive atmosphere doesn't reach everyone. In a remote neighborhood, where the brightness of the lights doesn't mask the social cracks, prejudice still finds room to grow. Tessa Morgan, a special agent with the FBI, arrives in town to investigate a delicate case, a human trafficking network that uses local festivities to operate discreetly. With her braided hair and confident gaze, she quickly stands out, both for her position and her appearance. A black woman in a position of power is still something many in this town aren't ready to accept. On Tuesday afternoon, Tessa parks her official car in front of the police station to request access to important case files. Inside the station, Sergeant Bradley Walker, a local officer known for his racist behavior and outdated views of social hierarchy, greets her with a disdainful look. He examines her badge as if expecting to find something wrong. "The FBI sent you here?" he says, not hiding his sarcastic tone. "Well, let's see what I can do, if I have time." Tessa, accustomed to handling hostile situations, remains calm and directly requests access to the database. However, Bradley decides to complicate things. He ignores her request and makes disrespectful comments about her presence, insinuating that she should be helping in the kitchen instead of playing cop. The tension reaches its peak when Tessa tries to leave the station to get a court order granting her access to the files. Bradley, in an act of pure abuse of power, orders her arrest, claiming she was disturbing public order. Tessa is handcuffed in front of several onlookers as prejudiced comments and stares spread. She feels the humiliation but keeps her gaze steady. In the dimly lit cell, she reflects on why this is happening just a week before Christmas. Night falls over the town as Tessa remains in the cell, contemplating the injustice she has just faced. The muffled sound of laughter and conversations from the station echoes through the halls, contrasting with the solitude she feels in the moment. Tessa closes her eyes and recalls a conversation she had with her grandmother as a child about never letting racism define her. Christmas is a time when light triumphs over darkness. Her grandmother's voice echoes in her mind, bringing a thread of hope. Despite everything, she knows she must keep her head high and find a strategic way out of this situation. Meanwhile, in the main office of the police station, Sergeant Bradley Walker celebrates with his subordinates as if he's won a personal battle. He shares his distorted view of authority, completely ignoring the impact of his actions on an innocent person's life. However, not all the officers feel comfortable with the situation. One of them, a young officer named Lucas Carter, watches Tessa in her cell with a mix of guilt and unease. Lucas, who joined the police force hoping to make a difference, realizes that something is wrong. He knows Tessa's arrest was unjust, but fears directly confronting Bradley. Instead, he decides to act different. Lucas walks to the station's archive, finds the paperwork Tessa had requested, and in a silent act of courage, makes a copy to deliver to her as soon as possible. In the cell, Tessa is visited by a young black lawyer named Naomi Williams. Naomi had been informed about the arrest by one of the few local residents who admired her. Standing firm, Naomi says, "I know what happened here isn't fair, but we won't let it end like this. I've already filed for your release. It'll take a few hours, but I promise I won't rest until you're out of here." The tone of Naomi's voice comforts Tessa, who realizes she isn't entirely alone in this fight. While they wait, the two begin to talk about the town's situation and how prejudice seems like a shadow that never dissipates. Tessa shares details about the human trafficking case with Naomi, suggesting that Bradley's resistance to cooperating might stem from more than simple racism. There might be something deeper. Back at the station, Lucas finally gathers the courage to deliver the documents to Tessa. He waits until the room is empty and walks to the cell, saying quietly, "I don't agree with what the sergeant did. Here are the files you requested." Tessa watches him closely, trying to assess if she can trust him. She takes the documents and mutters a thank you. Lucas hesitates for a moment before adding, "I don't want to get more involved than this, but I believe you're on the right track." With the documents in hand, Tessa begins identifying connections between the human trafficking case and local names she doesn't immediately recognize. Naomi, still by her side, helps analyze the papers. With each page, the two uncover clues suggesting that Bradley Walker might be more involved in the network of crimes than they'd like to believe. The night progresses, and finally, the release order arrives. Tessa is set free, but not without facing another hostile look from Bradley, who mutters, "Hope you've learned not to overstep your bounds." Tessa, now free, doesn't respond. But inside, she decides this battle is far from over. With the documents provided by Lucas and Naomi's help, she sees a new light to dismantle the trafficking network and possibly expose Bradley for his dark connections. Tessa and Naomi leave the station and walk under the starry night sky, feeling the cold December air that heralds the arrival of Christmas. Despite the discomfort of her unjust imprisonment, Tessa is more determined than ever. They enter Naomi's small makeshift office, used as a base for local cases, spread the documents across the table, and begin piecing together the puzzle. "Look at this," Naomi says, pointing to a list of addresses. "This warehouse is just a few miles from here. It's registered under a shell company, but it's suspicious that there haven't been any recent financial transactions." Tessa nods in agreement. The information aligns with reports she already had about transporting victims in discreet trucks. One name appears repeatedly in the papers: Walker Freight Solutions, a logistics company coincidentally owned by Bradley Walker's family. The next morning, Naomi and Tessa decide to investigate the location on their own. Before leaving, Tessa sends an encrypted message to her FBI team, requesting reinforcements and informing them of her suspicions. Upon arriving at the warehouse, they find the gate slightly ajar. The place seems abandoned, but there are fresh tire tracks on the ground. As they inspect the site, Tessa finds a locked container. Using a crowbar nearby, she forces it open. Inside, they find several boxes with forged documents, disposable cell phones, and bundles of cash evidence pointing to an operation far larger than they had imagined. However, what truly freezes their breath is the sound of voices coming from a corridor in the back. They quickly hide behind some boxes and see two uniformed men enter. One of them carries a radio and speaks with someone, mentioning the Christmas delivery and the need to move everything before anyone finds out. The words confirm Tessa's suspicions. The human trafficking operation is active, and this warehouse is one of its primary hubs. Back at the police station, Sergeant Bradley Walker is sitting at his desk, checking his mail. An anonymous envelope catches his attention. Inside is a single photo, a blurry image of Tessa and Naomi at the warehouse. Accompanying the photo is a note: "She knows too much. Take care of it before it ruins everything." Furious, Bradley gets up and summons Lucas to his office. He begins pressuring the young officer, questioning whether he knows anything about Tessa's investigation. Lucas, visibly nervous, denies everything, but his behavior raises suspicion. After Lucas leaves, Bradley picks up his phone and makes a call. "They're already investigating," he says. "If we don't resolve this by the end of the week, we could have a problem." Meanwhile, Tessa and Naomi leave the warehouse quickly, carrying photos and videos they've collected as evidence. As they get into the car, Tessa feels a mix of relief and apprehension. The case is becoming more dangerous, and she knows each step will come with risks. "Do you think Bradley is directly involved?" Naomi asks as she drives. "I'm sure of it," Tessa replies. "He's hiding something big, and now we have enough evidence to expose at least part of the operation." Back at Naomi's office, Tessa receives an alert from her FBI team. Reinforcements are on their way, but her superior advises her to avoid confrontations until the team arrives. Ignoring or following these orders will be a critical decision, but Tessa doesn't have time to hesitate. However, before they can decide on their next move, the building they're in is surrounded by cars with flashing sirens. Armed men quickly get out, but they're not from the FBI. "This isn't good," Naomi says, already looking for an escape route. Tessa realizes things have just escalated. The initial prejudice she faced was only the tip of the iceberg. Now, she's up against an organized crime network protected by people in power. Tessa and Naomi watch in silence as the armed men surround the building. The flashing lights reflect against the office windows, creating unsettling shadows on the walls. Survival instinct kicks in, and Tessa signals for Naomi to stay quiet while she looks for a strategic way out. They descend a side staircase leading to the building's basement, where Tessa finds a door that provides access to an alley. Before opening the door, they hear a command outside: "Make sure no one gets out without going through us." Naomi's heart races, but Tessa remains calm. She places a reassuring hand on Naomi's shoulder and whispers, "Trust me, I'll get us out of here." Using an improvised tool found in the basement, Tessa slowly opens the door without making noise. They slip out into the alley and run in the opposite direction of the vehicles. Adrenaline courses through their veins as they hide behind dumpsters and crates, avoiding the men's line of sight. After a few minutes, they find temporary shelter in a convenience store open late at night. There, Tessa uses a payphone to contact her FBI team. She reports the attack on Naomi's building and demands immediate reinforcements. "We're on our way, Morgan." "Hang tight," her boss responds. While they wait, Naomi sits in a corner of the store, still trembling. "They know everything, Tessa? Who were those men? How did they know where we were?" Tessa leans against the wall, trying to organize her thoughts. "Probably Bradley has more control over this network than we imagined. Those men are part of the scheme. But the question is, how did they find out about our location?" Naomi looks at her with concern. Someone must have leaked the information. Maybe someone inside the station. The words echo in Tessa's mind, and she begins to suspect that Lucas, despite his initial help, might have been manipulated or pressured by Bradley. This realization only strengthens her resolve to expose the scheme before Christmas arrives and before more lives are destroyed. Meanwhile, at the police station, Bradley receives a phone call. The voice on the other end is threatening. "You've let this spiral out of control, Walker. If the agent discovers more, she'll bring the whole thing down. Don't forget you're on the line too." Bradley tries to maintain his composure, but realizes he's running out of options. He understands his actions are being closely monitored by the very criminal network he promised to protect. After hanging up, Bradley directly confronts Lucas, accusing him of helping Tessa and threatening his career. "I trusted you, Carter, but it seems you're more loyal to that FBI agent than to your own team." Lucas tries to defend himself, but the tension in the room is palpable. He knows revealing his actions could put his life in danger. "I didn't do anything, Sergeant," he replies, avoiding direct eye contact. However, the fear in Lucas's eyes doesn't escape Bradley's notice. He decides to use Lucas as bait, setting a trap to capture Tessa. A few hours later, Tessa finally receives a message from her FBI team informing her that reinforcements have arrived in the town. With backup guaranteed, she decides it's time to take the next step, confront the operations Bradley is hiding, and seek a confession. However, Naomi raises a concern. What if this is a trap? They know we're investigating, and now we're not sure who's on our side. Tessa takes a deep breath, weighing the situation. She knows every minute is critical, especially since the trafficking victims may be moved elsewhere as they speak. "We don't have a choice, Naomi. Either we act now, or we risk losing everything." The two meet with the FBI team at a strategic point outside the town. Daniel Brooks, the operation leader, listens attentively as Tessa explains the connections between Bradley and the criminal network. "We need concrete evidence to arrest him, Morgan. If he's involved, we'll need a careful approach. People like him don't act alone," Brooks advises. Tessa agrees but remains resolute. "He's the weakest link in the chain. If we pressure him, he could lead us to the others." With the plan outlined, Tessa returns to the police station, this time accompanied by a discreet team of undercover agents. However, upon entering, she senses something is wrong. The station is quieter than usual, and several familiar faces are absent. In Bradley's office, Tessa finds him sitting behind his desk with a cold smile. "I figured you'd be back, Morgan. But don't worry, I'm ready to answer your questions." She detects the defiant tone and knows he's stalling for time. But Tessa is ready to turn the tables. Bradley watches her with a mix of arrogance and desperation, like a gambler about to bet everything on the final hand. Tessa, maintaining her firm posture and unyielding gaze, sits in the chair across from him, keeping enough distance to ensure the undercover agents can intervene if anything goes wrong. Sergeant Walker, I know you're hiding more than you're letting on, Tessa begins calmly, but with determination. And I know the human trafficking operation in this town didn't start yesterday. You're in this up to your neck, and it's only a matter of time before everything comes to light. Bradley lets out a low chuckle, crossing his arms. Those are serious accusations, Agent. Are you sure you want to go down this path? Meanwhile, outside the station, Naomi is in a car with Brooks and other FBI agents, monitoring the conversation through a microphone hidden in Tessa's clothing. Naomi, though not trained for operations like this, feels anxious. He's bluffing, isn't he? She asks Brooks. Maybe, but men like Walker don't bluff for long when they're cornered. That's why we need Tessa's patience to force him to slip up, Brooks responds. Inside the room, the conversation between Tessa and Bradley continues. You think you're in control, Walker, Tessa says, leaning slightly forward. But I have enough evidence to expose your connections to the trafficking network. This is your chance to cooperate. Tell me what you know, and maybe you'll get a deal to avoid rotting in prison. Bradley's smile falters for a moment, but he quickly recovers. Evidence, he says mockingly. You think those copies you took from the warehouse mean anything? Good luck proving anything. Tessa realizes he's trying to distract her and decides to press harder. We know about the Christmas delivery, Walker. We know there are victims being transported right now, and when we find them, all the connections will lead back to you. Bradley stiffens. For a second, he hesitates, and Tessa notices. Before he can respond, the door opens, and Lucas nervously enters, holding a folder. Sergeant, we need to talk, Lucas says, glancing at Tessa. Bradley narrows his eyes but gestures for Lucas to continue. It's about tonight's operation. I think Agent Morgan might be right. We need to reconsider how we're handling it. Tessa realizes Lucas is trying to help her, but his awkward demeanor gives away more than he intends. Bradley stands abruptly, his face now a mix of anger and paranoia. Are you trying to sabotage me, Carter? He shouts. Before Lucas can respond, an alarm goes off in the station. The undercover agents sense something is wrong. Outside, Naomi spots several suspicious vehicles arriving, and Brooks immediately orders everyone to prepare for a possible ambush. We've got movement. They know we're here. Naomi alerts through the radio. Inside the station, Bradley realizes he's surrounded and tries to escape. He pushes Lucas aside and runs toward a back exit, but Tessa follows closely as FBI agents enter through the main entrance. In the parking lot behind the station, Bradley gets into a car and tries to start the engine, but Tessa, acting swiftly, blocks the vehicle and draws her weapon, ordering, "Get out of the car now, Walker. This is the end of the line for you." In a desperate act, Bradley hits the gas, but before he can get away, another FBI vehicle blocks his path. He's forced to step out with his hands raised. "You think this is over?" he shouts as he's handcuffed. "I'm not the only one. You're messing with something far bigger than you realize." As the agents take him to the squad car, Tessa feels a momentary sense of relief, but Bradley's words echo in her mind. He was clearly trying to intimidate her, but there was something about his tone that felt more like a warning than an empty threat. As Bradley is taken into FBI custody, Tessa knows the case is far from over. During his interrogation, he refuses to cooperate, resorting instead to taunts and ominous warnings. "You think this changes anything?" he says with a cynical smile. "I'm not in charge. You have no idea who you're dealing with." In the observation room, Naomi, accompanied by Lucas and Agent Brooks, watches the interrogation with a mix of frustration and intrigue. "He's hiding something bigger," Naomi comments. "But how do we make him talk?" Brooks nods, agreeing. He knows that talking would sign his death warrant. The trafficking network is protected by people far more powerful than us, and he fears them more than he fears the law. Lucas, sitting in the corner, fidgets restlessly. Finally, he stands and speaks up. "I can help." Bradley trusted me more than the others. If I talked to him, I might be able to get him to open up. Tessa, having just entered the observation room after the interrogation, gives Lucas a skeptical look. And why should we trust you? You've worked alongside him for years. How do we know you're not just trying to protect him? Lucas hesitates, clearly hurt by the accusation, but he knows he has to prove himself. I made mistakes, but I was never part of this operation. Yes, I knew he had his prejudices and questionable methods, but I never imagined it was this deep. When I realized what he was doing, it was too late. Believe me or not, I want to make this right. Naomi looks at Tessa as if pleading for her to give Lucas a chance. Reluctantly, Tessa agrees, but she makes it clear this isn't a free pass. If you're lying, you'll go down with him. Lucas enters the interrogation room while Tessa and Brooks observe closely. He tries to approach Bradley in a friendly manner, but the sergeant only laughs. Come to beg for forgiveness for betraying your team, Carter? Pathetic. Lucas takes a deep breath and tries a different tactic. Sergeant, the operation is compromised. They already know about the Christmas delivery. You won't get out of this alone, but if you cooperate, you might save something. For a moment, Bradley seems to consider Lucas's words. He leans forward and asks, "And what's in it for me?" In the observation room, Tessa whispers to Naomi, "He's trying to negotiate." That's a good sign. Naomi, however, remains skeptical. It could also be a trick. He might be stalling to alert the others involved. Before they can act, Bradley makes an unexpected revelation. The delivery isn't what you think. It's not just a movement of victims. It's an auction. They're bringing the goods here on Christmas Eve because no one would suspect. The shock in the observation room is immediate. Tessa grabs the radio and calls her team to prepare. We have to locate this event and shut it down before it's too late. With the new information, Tessa and her team face two choices. Wait for formal FBI authorization, which could take time, or act immediately with the resources they have. Brooks advises caution. If we go in without a solid plan, we could endanger the victims and have blood on our hands. But Tessa, driven by the urgency and emotional weight of the situation, argues, we can't wait. Every minute that passes, these people are being treated like commodities. We have to act now. Naomi steps in, trying to calm the tension. I agree that we need to act quickly, but we can't be reckless. Whatever we decide, it has to be calculated. Meanwhile, Lucas, still processing what he heard from Bradley, offers further help. I know Walker's patterns. He always used an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts for discreet operations. It's possible the auction will be there. With the team divided, Tessa makes the final decision. We'll investigate the warehouse. If we confirm any suspicious activity, we'll call in reinforcements and move in. We can't leave these people's fate to bureaucracy. That night, Tessa, Naomi, and a small FBI team surround the warehouse Lucas identified. Outside, the area is desolate, with only a few dim lights illuminating the surroundings. The tension is palpable as they wait for the right moment to act. Inside, muffled voices and sounds of movement confirm that something significant is happening. Tessa signals for everyone to be ready, knowing the action she's about to take could change everything. The abandoned warehouse is surrounded by long, unsettling shadows cast by the faint glow of poorly lit streetlights. Inside the vehicles, Tessa and her FBI team sit silently, observing every movement. Naomi, sitting in the passenger seat beside Tessa, is visibly anxious but trying to stay composed. This is bigger than anything I've ever worked on, Naomi whispers. Bigger and more dangerous, Tessa replies, adjusting her bulletproof vest. Lucas, stationed in another vehicle with Brooks, clutches his radio nervously. He knows his information was vital in finding the location, but the weight of what's about to happen consumes him. This is his first operation of this magnitude. Through her binoculars, Tessa spots the warehouse entrance. Two armed men patrol outside and trucks are being parked at the rear, indicating a significant operation. Naomi reviews notes based on Bradley's revelations and Lucas's input. If they're organizing an auction, the victims are likely already here, Naomi says, her voice filled with worry. Tessa nods and picks up her radio. We need confirmation that the victims are inside before we make a move. Alpha Team, prepare to breach the main entrance. Bravo Team, take the rear. Understood, Brooks responds. But proceed with caution. We don't know the full scale of the operation here. As the team positions itself, Tessa feels the adrenaline build. She knows any misstep could put the victims in greater danger and compromise the entire operation. Inside the warehouse, the scene is more horrifying than they could have imagined. Rows of chairs are arranged as if for an audience, creating the setting for an auction. At the center, a makeshift stage is illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. On the stage, two men organize documents for the merchandise, while others check on the victims confined in crude cages at the back of the room. Among the gathered individuals, Tessa recognizes a familiar face through the FBI drone cameras, a local politician known for his fiery speeches against human trafficking. Is he one of the buyers? Naomi asks in disbelief, watching the live feed. It appears so, Tessa replies coldly. This isn't just a trafficking scheme, it's a network much larger than we anticipated. The victims, mostly young women, sit in silence with expressions of fear and resignation. Some cry quietly, while others appear numb, detached from the horror around them. Tessa adjusts her radio again. We've confirmed the victims. We're going in. Alpha Team, get ready to breach the main entrance. Bravo Team, move in from the rear. Understood, Brooks responds. As the teams approach the warehouse, one of the guards at the entrance notices the movement and grabs his radio. We've got company, he shouts, triggering an improvised alarm that echoes throughout the building. Chaos erupts. The buyers scramble to flee, while armed guards prepare for a fight. Tessa and her team act swiftly. FBI, nobody move, Tessa yells as she storms into the warehouse with her weapon raised. The guards fire at her team, but the FBI agents respond with precision. An intense firefight breaks out as Tessa advances toward the victims, shielded by her colleagues. Outside, Lucas and Naomi work to intercept fleeing vehicles. Despite his inexperience, Lucas successfully blocks a car attempting to escape, while Naomi takes note of license plates for future investigations. Amid the gunfire, Tessa reaches the cages where the victims are held. She finds the keys on a neutralized guard and unlocks the doors, speaking calmly to reassure them. You're safe now. We're here to help. The victims begin to emerge slowly, some crying with relief, others hesitant to trust their rescuers. Meanwhile, Brooks discovers a hidden compartment in the warehouse. Inside, he finds a room filled with forged documents, computers, and recordings that reveal the full extent of the operation. As he quickly scans the files, he realizes the implications. The network includes powerful figures such as judges, business leaders, and even law enforcement officials. He radios Tessa. Morgan, you need to see this. We've uncovered evidence that could shake the entire system. Tessa, still focused on ensuring the victim's safety, replies, secure everything. This is the key to taking down the entire network. However, before Brooks can leave the hidden room, one last guard emerges and attempts to destroy the files. In a quick confrontation, Brooks neutralizes the threat, but some of the evidence is damaged. With the guards subdued and the victims rescued, Tessa finally exhales. The warehouse is now filled with FBI agents, and the captured buyers are being loaded into police vehicles. Yet, as she surveys the scene, Tessa knows the fight is far from over. The evidence reveals the systemic depth of the operation far beyond what they've seen so far. Naomi approaches and places a comforting hand on Tessa's shoulder. You did an incredible job today. Tessa nods, but her eyes remain fixed on the victims being escorted to medical care. It's a start, Naomi, but the justice system has a long way to go. The successful operation at the warehouse marks a major milestone, but Tessa knows it's only the beginning. With local leaders of the trafficking network in custody and the victims rescued, the FBI must now target the powerful figures operating behind the scenes from their untouchable positions of power. Back at the temporary FBI command center, Henry Mason, the investigative journalist, contacts Tessa with an urgent message. We need to talk immediately, Mason says in a grave tone during a video call. He shares new documents provided by an anonymous source, containing additional details about the trafficking network. Mason explains that while the initial exposure dealt a significant blow to the operation, the network's allies are already working to erase evidence and manipulate the system. They're moving quickly. There's an effort to bury this case in court and undermine the investigation. If we don't act now, we risk losing everything, Mason warns. The severity of the situation prompts Tessa to call an emergency meeting with her team. We can't let them silence this case, Tessa says firmly. We'll take the evidence directly to the public. Liv, this won't just be a police operation. It'll be an act of justice that no one can ignore. The team decides to hold a surprise press conference, broadcast by Henry Mason and other independent journalists, to reveal the depth of the trafficking network and name the key individuals involved. The goal is to generate enough public pressure to make it impossible for the perpetrators to escape justice. This will back them into a corner, Naomi explains, helping to organize the evidence. The more people who know the truth, the harder it'll be for them to manipulate the system. However, the decision is not without risks. Tessa and her team are aware that the criminals' allies might retaliate violently. We need to prepare for the worst, Brooks warns. They won't go down without a fight. The press conference is scheduled for later that evening at a public but heavily guarded location. As journalists arrive and set up their cameras, Tessa and Naomi finalize the presentation of the evidence. Do we have everything we need? Naomi asks. Yes, Tessa replies. Now, it's just a matter of presenting it and hoping the impact is strong enough. Shortly before the conference begins, Tessa receives another call from the unknown number that previously threatened her. You really think you can win? The voice sneers. There's nowhere safe for you, Tessa responds coldly. Come and find me. I'm waiting. She hangs up, takes a deep breath, and prepares for what's to come. When the cameras go live, Tessa steps onto the stage and begins presenting the evidence. She shares recordings, documents, and victim testimonies, detailing how the trafficking network operated with the complicity of powerful figures. She names key perpetrators, including local politicians, business tycoons, and high-ranking law enforcement officials. Human trafficking is a crime that thrives in the shadows, protected by silence and corruption. Today, we are shining a light on those shadows. No matter how powerful you are, justice will catch up to you, Tessa declares, her voice unwavering. The revelations are broadcast live to millions of viewers, while journalists and citizens share the evidence on social media. Public outrage grows rapidly. During the conference, undercover agents spot suspicious individuals among the crowd. A group of armed men attempts to approach the stage, but is quickly intercepted by FBI agents. A brief confrontation ensues, but the team is prepared. Despite the danger, Tessa remains composed, standing firm at the center of the operation. After the press conference concludes, the impact is immediate. Protests erupt in cities across the country, demanding the arrest of everyone involved. The evidence presented is enough to launch formal investigations against high-profile figures. Naomi, standing beside Tessa, smiles as she watches the news unfold. You did it, Tessa. This is bigger than any of us imagined. Tessa nods, though her expression remains serious. We did it. But this isn't just about what we did today. It's about ensuring this never happens again. Lucas, feeling renewed purpose, approaches Tessa. I want to do more. I know I was part of the problem before, but I want to be part of the solution now. Tessa offers a faint smile. Then you'd better get ready because the fight is just beginning. The press conference and its immediate repercussions set off a wave of changes. Under intense public scrutiny, the trafficking network's leaders, including politicians, business magnates, and law enforcement officials, are arrested. The small town, once steeped in a sense of impunity, begins to transform as the case becomes a national symbol of justice against corruption and human trafficking. Tessa's role in the operation earns her recognition within the FBI, but she declines offers for promotions that would distance her from fieldwork. I didn't do this for recognition, she tells Brooks during a conversation at the command center. I did this because every life we save matters. Brooks, who has witnessed Tessa's growth and determination, praises her efforts. The FBI could use more agents like you, Morgan. Naomi, despite her injury, returns to her work as a lawyer, now more motivated than ever to fight for victims' rights. The system isn't perfect, but we can change it one piece at a time, Naomi tells Tessa during one of their final conversations. Lucas, in his pursuit of redemption, joins a special unit dedicated to combating human trafficking. I've learned so much from this case. It's time to put it to good use, he tells Tessa before leaving for his new assignment. On New Year's Eve, Tessa is alone in her apartment, reviewing the final reports from the case. Memories of the victims they rescued and the people who helped bring justice weigh on her, but they also bring a sense of accomplishment. She recalls her grandmother's words, "Christmas is the time when light triumphs over darkness." Looking out her window at the city lights, Tessa reflects on the long battle ahead. While this victory was significant, she knows there are countless other networks and victims waiting for someone to stand up for them. Sometimes all it takes is a spark to ignite a flame, she murmurs to herself, feeling grateful to have played her part in making a difference. As the clock strikes midnight, Tessa receives a call from Naomi. "Happy New Year, Tessa. I have good news. The case has been officially classified as a national priority. We're making real progress." Tessa smiles as she gazes at the night sky. "Happy New Year, Naomi. We're finally making a difference." The exposure of the trafficking network causes ripple effects nationwide. Those arrested face charges with overwhelming evidence, and several high-profile trials are set to begin. The case inspires other communities to take action against similar networks, shining a light on corruption and organized crime. Though the operation was a success, Tessa remains grounded. She knows the fight against human trafficking and systemic corruption is far from over. However, for now, she allows herself a moment of peace, knowing that the lives of many victims have been changed forever.